When people talk about the greatest Ferrari ever built, the same names always come up. The F40, the 250 GTO, the Enzo, the LaFerrari. Each has millions of fans who will tell you theirs is the greatest Ferrari of all time. But here's the problem. Ferrari has spent nearly 8 decades building some of the most legendary sports cars the world has ever seen. Comparing a handcrafted race car from the 1950s to a 1,000-horsepower hybrid hypercar of today isn't exactly a fair fight. So instead of choosing just one, we're asking a different question. What was the greatest Ferrari of each decade? From the car that established Ferrari as a racing powerhouse, to the machine that became the most valuable collector car on Earth, to the supercar that even professional drivers described as terrifying, every era produced a Ferrari that changed the automotive world forever. Some of these choices are obvious, others might surprise you. So buckle up, because today we're taking a journey through nearly 80 years of Ferrari history to discover the greatest Ferrari of every decade. To understand why these cars became legends, we first have to go back to where the Ferrari story began. In 1947, Enzo Ferrari introduced the company's first road car, the 125S. But building road cars was never the dream. It was simply the means to an end. Enzo's true passion was racing, and every Ferrari sold helped fund his relentless pursuit of victory on the track. That philosophy shaped the company from day one. Ferrari didn't chase comfort, it didn't chase practicality, and it certainly didn't chase trends. Every decision was driven by one goal: building cars that delivered the closest possible connection between driver, machine, and motorsport. Over the decades, Ferrari's engineers pioneered groundbreaking V12 engines, lightweight construction, Formula One-inspired technology, and some of the most breathtaking designs ever penned. The result wasn't just a lineup of fast cars. It was a legacy built on innovation, emotion, and an uncompromising passion for performance. Of course, not every Ferrari became an icon. Some were stepping stones, while others faded into history. But every decade produced one car that stood above the rest, a machine that captured the spirit of Ferrari better than any of its rivals. This is the story of those cars, and how each one defined its era. The 1950s, Ferrari, 250, GT Berlinetta, Tour de France. The 1950s were a defining decade for Ferrari. Europe was rebuilding after the Second World War, and the automotive world was changing rapidly. Manufacturers weren't just competing to build faster cars, they were racing to prove themselves on the world's toughest circuits. For Ferrari, every victory meant something more than a trophy. It was proof that a young Italian manufacturer could stand alongside the greatest names in motorsport. During this era, Ferrari dominated legendary endurance races like the Mille Miglia and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But while its race cars earned headlines, Ferrari also began building road cars that carried that same racing DNA onto public roads. No model captured that philosophy better than the Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta, better known as the Tour de France. Named after its repeated victories in the grueling Tour de France automobile race, the car perfectly blended beauty, speed, and competition. Beneath its elegant, handcrafted body sat a 3.0-liter Colombo 512 engine that produced around 240 horsepower, an extraordinary figure for the 1950s. Combined with lightweight construction and razor-sharp handling, it became one of the quickest grand touring cars of its time. But the Tour de France wasn't just fast. It proved that a Ferrari could be both a formidable race winner and an exhilarating road car. That balance became one of the company's defining characteristics and laid the foundation for every great Ferrari that followed. Its success established Ferrari as more than just a racing team. It transformed the brand into a symbol of Italian engineering, performance, and prestige, one that enthusiasts around the world dreamed of owning. As remarkable as the Tour de France was, Ferrari was only getting started. The next decade would produce a car so iconic that, more than half a century later, it would become the most valuable collector car ever sold. The 1960s, Ferrari 250 GTO. If the Tour de France introduced Ferrari to the world, The 250 GTO made it unforgettable. By the early 1960s, Ferrari had already earned a reputation for building exceptional sports cars, but competition was fiercer than ever. Rival manufacturers were investing heavily in motorsport, and every race was a battle for prestige. Ferrari needed a car that could dominate on the track while meeting the strict homologation rules required for GT racing. The answer arrived in 1962 with what many consider the greatest Ferrari ever built, the Ferrari 250 GTO. At first glance, its long hood, sweeping curves, and aggressive stance looked like rolling artwork, but every line served a purpose. The body was sculpted in the wind tunnel to improve aerodynamics, while beneath it sat a glorious 3.0-liter Colombo FIV, 12 producing around 300 horsepower. It wasn't just powerful, it was perfectly balanced, delivering a driving experience that was as rewarding as it was demanding. On the racetrack, the 250 GTO was nearly unbeatable. It claimed multiple GT-class victories and helped Ferrari secure the International Championship for GT manufacturers 3 years in a row. Its combination of speed, reliability, and agility made it the benchmark that every rival struggled to match. Yet what truly cemented the GTO's legendary status happened long after its racing career ended. Ferrari built just 36 examples, making it one of the rarest production Ferraris ever created. As the years passed, collectors began to realize they weren't just buying a classic car, they were buying a piece of automotive history. Values climbed from thousands to millions, and eventually to tens of millions of dollars. Today, the 250 GTO is widely regarded as the most valuable collector car in the world, with private sales reportedly exceeding $70 million, and one example selling at auction for over $51 million. More than its price tag, however, it's the car's unmatched blend of racing success, engineering excellence, rarity, and timeless beauty that has made it the ultimate Ferrari. For many enthusiasts, the story could end here. They believe the 250 GTO is the greatest Ferrari ever made, but Ferrari had no intention of standing still. As the supercar revolution gathered pace in the 1970s, the company would abandon tradition and make one of the boldest engineering decisions in its history, moving its flagship road cars engine behind the driver. The 1970s, Ferrari F40 Berlinetta Boxer. The 1970s marked the beginning of a new era for high-performance cars. The automotive world was changing fast. Mid-engine supercars were becoming the new benchmark, proving that placing the engine behind the driver offered better balance, sharper handling, and greater performance. Ferrari had experimented with the layout in racing for years, but its flagship road cars still followed a traditional front-engine formula. That changed in 1973. The Ferrari 512BB, short for Berlinetta Boxer, was a bold statement that Ferrari was ready to embrace the future. At first glance, it looked unlike any Ferrari that had come before it. Penned by the legendary design house Pininfarina, the 512BB featured a low, wedge-shaped silhouette, wide stance, and dramatic proportions that perfectly captured the spirit of the 1970s. It looked every bit as exotic as its rivals, yet it retained the unmistakable elegance Ferrari was known for. Power came from a naturally aspirated 5.0-liter, flat 12 engine producing around 360 horsepower. Despite its boxer name, the engine was technically a 180-degree V12 rather than a true boxer, but its low placement helped lower the car's center of gravity, improving stability and handling. More importantly, the 512BB became Ferrari's first flagship road car with a mid-mounted engine. It represented a complete shift in philosophy. The layout delivered better weight distribution, improved cornering performance, and a more engaging driving experience, setting the blueprint for many of Ferrari's future supercars. The 512BB wasn't the fastest Ferrari ever built, nor was it the rarest, but its importance lies in what it started. Without the bold leap to a mid-engine flagship, icons like the Testarossa, the F40, the Enzo, and the LaFerrari might never have existed in the forms we know today. The Berlinetta Boxer proved that Ferrari wasn't afraid to reinvent itself when progress demanded it, and that willingness to evolve reached its peak in the next decade, when Ferrari unveiled a machine so raw, so uncompromising, and so unforgettable that many enthusiasts still consider it the greatest driver's car the company has ever produced. The F40 had arrived. The 1980s, Ferrari F40. By the mid-1980s, Ferrari had already built some of the most iconic cars in automotive history, but the company was about to create something that would become far more than just another supercar. It would become a legend. Introduced in 1987 to celebrate Ferrari's 40th anniversary, the F40 wasn't designed to be luxurious or comfortable. It was built with one goal in mind: delivering the closest thing possible to a racing car that could legally drive on public roads. Perhaps what makes the F40 even more special is that it was the last Ferrari personally approved by Enzo Ferrari before his passing in 1988. In many ways, it represented the final expression of his philosophy, a machine where performance mattered above everything else. Its design reflected that mindset. Every panel was shaped with purpose, every vent directed airflow, and every kilogram of unnecessary weight was stripped away. The body was constructed from lightweight composite materials. The windows used plexiglass where possible, and inside, there was almost nothing that didn't contribute to making the car faster. No plush carpets, no luxury trim, no electronic driving aids, just a steering wheel, 3 pedals, and a cockpit that reminded you this car demanded your full attention. Behind the driver sat a 2.9-liter, twin-turbocharged V8, producing 478 horsepower. While that number may seem modest by today's standards, in the late 1980s it was extraordinary. Weighing just over 1,100 kilograms, the F40 launched from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in around 4 seconds and became the first production car to officially exceed 320 kilometers per hour, 200 miles per hour. But numbers only tell part of the story. The F40 earned its reputation because of how it made people feel. The turbochargers delivered their power with explosive force. The steering communicated every bump in the road, and with no traction control or stability systems to save you, every drive demanded total concentration. It wasn't a car that flattered its driver. It challenged them. For skilled drivers, that challenge became part of the magic. The F40 quickly became the poster car of an entire generation, hanging on bedroom walls across the world and starring in countless magazines, documentaries, and video games. Even decades later, it remains one of the most recognizable supercars ever created. More importantly, it captured everything Ferrari stood for: breathtaking performance, uncompromising engineering, and pure emotion behind the wheel. Ask a room full of Ferrari enthusiasts to name the greatest Ferrari ever made, and the F40 will almost always be part of the conversation. For many, it wasn't just Ferrari's greatest creation. It was the greatest supercar of all time. Replacing a legend like the F40 seemed almost impossible. Yet in the 1990s, Ferrari chose not to build a faster version of the F40. Instead, it took inspiration from its Formula One program and created a car unlike anything the company had ever produced before. The 1990s, Ferrari F50. Following the F40 was never going to be easy. By the early 1990s, Ferrari faced an almost impossible challenge. How do you replace a car that many already considered the greatest supercar ever built? Rather than trying to make the F40 faster or more extreme, Ferrari took a completely different approach. The result was the Ferrari F50, unveiled in 1995 to celebrate the company's 50th anniversary. If the F40 was inspired by endurance racing, the F50 brought Formula One technology to the road like never before. At its heart was a naturally aspirated 4.7-liter V12, derived from Ferrari's 1990 Formula One engine. It produced over 500 horsepower and revved with a soundtrack that remains one of the most exhilarating ever heard from a road car. But the engine was only part of the story. The F50 featured a carbon fiber monocoque chassis, technology that was still rare in production cars at the time. Even more remarkably, the engine was mounted as a stressed member of the chassis, just as it would be in a Formula One car. This design increased rigidity, reduced weight, and created an incredibly direct connection between the driver and the machine. Unlike many supercars of its era, the F50 stayed true to Ferrari's philosophy of keeping the driving experience pure. There was no power steering, no anti-lock braking system, and no electronic stability control. With its open-gated 6-speed manual transmission and removable Targa roof, every journey felt like a race car brought onto public roads. Yet despite its groundbreaking engineering, the F50 didn't receive universal praise when it was first released. Many critics couldn't help comparing it to the F40. Some expected another turbocharged monster, while others questioned its styling. Living in the shadow of such a legendary predecessor meant the F50 was often overlooked. Time, however, has a way of changing perspectives. As enthusiasts began to appreciate its engineering and rarity, just 349 examples were built. The F50's reputation steadily grew. Today, it's celebrated not as the car that followed the F40, but as one of the most authentic road-going Ferraris ever created. Its screaming, naturally aspirated V12, lightweight construction, and Formula One-inspired design have earned it a place among the greatest supercars of the 1990s. The F50 proved that Ferrari wasn't interested in repeating history. It was determined to push forward, embracing new ideas while remaining faithful to the thrill of driving. That relentless pursuit of innovation would reach another milestone in the early 2000s, when Ferrari unveiled a flagship so significant that it carried the name of the man who started it all, the Enzo. The 2000s, Ferrari Enzo. As the new millennium began, Ferrari wasn't just building on its past, it was redefining its future. The company had spent decades refining the supercar formula, but by the early 2000s, advances in Formula One were transforming what was possible on the road. Ferrari wanted its next flagship to be more than just faster than the F50. It wanted a car that represented the absolute pinnacle of automotive technology. In 2002, that vision became reality with the Ferrari Enzo. Named in honor of the company's founder, the Enzo wasn't simply another limited production Ferrari. It was a tribute to the man whose obsession with performance had shaped the brand for more than half a century. Everything about the car was designed with Formula One in mind. Its carbon fiber monocoque kept weight to a minimum while delivering exceptional rigidity. The sharp, angular bodywork wasn't created for style alone. Every intake, vent, and aerodynamic surface worked together to maximize cooling, stability, and downforce at high speeds. Power came from a naturally aspirated 6.0-liter V12, producing 651 horsepower, making it the most powerful road-going Ferrari ever built at the time. Combined with Ferrari's paddle-shift automated manual gearbox, the Enzo could sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just over 3 seconds before reaching a top speed of around 350 kilometers per hour. For many drivers, however, the numbers weren't what made the Enzo unforgettable. Its naturally aspirated V12 delivered instant throttle response and a spine-tingling soundtrack that grew more exhilarating with every passing revolution. The steering was razor-sharp, the chassis incredibly communicative, and every input reminded the driver that this was a machine engineered with racing at its core. The Enzo also became a cultural icon. It appeared in countless automotive magazines, blockbuster video games, and television shows, introducing an entirely new generation to the Ferrari brand. For many enthusiasts growing up in the early 2000s, the Enzo wasn't just a dream car, it was the dream car. Ferrari originally planned to build just 399 examples, but after receiving overwhelming demand, the company produced one additional car and donated it to be auctioned for charity. Today, the Enzo remains one of the most sought-after Ferraris ever created, admired not only for its rarity, but for perfectly capturing the technological ambitions of its era. By blending Formula One innovation with breathtaking performance, the Enzo set a new benchmark for what a Ferrari flagship could be. But Ferrari's next challenge was even greater. As stricter emissions regulations and rapidly advancing technology reshaped the automotive industry, the company faced a question that once seemed unthinkable. Could a hybrid Ferrari still deliver the emotion that made the prancing horse legendary? The 2010s, Ferrari LaFerrari. For decades, Ferrari had relied on one simple formula: a naturally aspirated engine, lightweight engineering, and an uncompromising focus on performance. But by the early 2000s, the automotive world was changing once again. Hybrid technology was no longer limited to fuel-efficient commuter cars. Formula One had begun embracing energy recovery systems, and manufacturers were discovering that electric motors could do more than reduce emissions. They could unlock levels of performance that combustion engines alone simply couldn't achieve. For Ferrari, this presented a difficult challenge. How do you embrace the future without losing the soul that made a Ferrari feel alive? The answer arrived in 2013 with a name that left no room for doubt: LaFerrari. Quite literally, the Ferrari. It was a bold statement, and the car had to live up to it. At its heart was one of the greatest engines Ferrari has ever built, a naturally aspirated 6.3-liter V12 producing 789 horsepower. Rather than replacing that engine with electricity, Ferrari paired it with an electric motor powered by its HERYKERS hybrid system, technology derived directly from the company's Formula One program. Together, the system produced a staggering 950 horsepower, making the LaFerrari the most powerful road car the company had ever created. The electric motor wasn't there to make the car quiet or economical. It filled in torque at lower engine speeds, sharpened acceleration, and worked seamlessly with the V12 to deliver instant power whenever the driver demanded it. The result was a driving experience that felt effortless, yet incredibly visceral. Every aspect of the car reflected Ferrari's obsession with performance. Its carbon fiber chassis kept weight under control, while advanced active aerodynamics continuously adjusted to maximize downforce and stability without adding unnecessary drag. At speed, the LaFerrari seemed to slice through the air with remarkable precision, remaining planted even as its performance entered hypercar territory. Yet despite all its cutting-edge technology, the heart of the experience remained unmistakably Ferrari. The V12 still screamed toward a 9,250 RPM redline, with a soundtrack that sent chills down the spine. The steering remained sharp and communicative, and every drive reminded you that this wasn't a computer on wheels. It was a Ferrari first and a hybrid second. Limited to just 499 coupés, with a small number of open-top Aperta models built later, the LaFerrari instantly became one of the most desirable hypercars on the planet. It stood alongside the McLaren P1 and Porsche 918 Spyder as part of the legendary Holy Trinity of hybrid hypercars, a trio that redefined what performance cars could achieve. More importantly, the LaFerrari silenced the skeptics. It proved that hybrid technology didn't have to dilute the Ferrari experience. It could elevate it. It wasn't the end of an era. It was the beginning of a new one. And that new era continues today, as Ferrari pushes beyond 1,000 horsepower, blends electrification with uncompromising performance, and writes the next chapter in the story of the prancing horse. The 2020s, Ferrari F40. More than 75 years after Enzo Ferrari built his first road car, the mission remains the same: build the most exciting performance machines in the world. But the definition of performance has changed dramatically. Today's hypercars aren't judged solely by top speed or horsepower. They must combine cutting-edge aerodynamics, lightweight construction, electrified powertrains, and Formula One-inspired technology into a package that pushes the boundaries of what's possible. Ferrari's answer is the F40. Unveiled in 2024 as the company's newest flagship hypercar, the F40 represents the most advanced road car Ferrari has ever created. Like every halo Ferrari before it, the F40 isn't simply meant to replace its predecessor. It's designed to redefine what a Ferrari can be. At its core is a twin-turbocharged V6 engine derived from Ferrari's endurance racing program, working alongside 3 electric motors to produce an astonishing 1,200 horsepower. It's a dramatic departure from the naturally aspirated V12S that powered legends like the F40, Enzo, and LaFerrari, but it reflects the direction of modern motorsport and the relentless pursuit of performance that has always defined Ferrari. Every surface of the F80 serves a purpose. Active aerodynamic elements constantly adjust to generate enormous downforce, while advanced suspension and electronic systems work together to extract every ounce of performance. The result is a car engineered not just to be fast in a straight line, but to dominate on a racing circuit with incredible precision. And yet, despite all of its technology, the philosophy behind the F80 is surprisingly familiar. Just like the 250 GTO, it was born from racing. Just like the F40, it refuses to compromise in its pursuit of speed. Just like the Enzo, it showcases Ferrari's most advanced engineering. And just like the LaFerrari, it embraces the future without forgetting where it came from. Whether the F80 will one day earn the same legendary status as those icons remains to be seen. History, not horsepower, will ultimately decide its place among Ferrari's greatest creations. But one thing is already certain. The F80 proves that Ferrari is still doing what it has done for generations, refusing to stand still, pushing the limits of engineering, and reminding the world why the prancing horse remains one of the most revered names in automotive history. From the elegant Grand Tourers of the 1950s to the cutting-edge hybrid hypercars of today, Ferrari's story has never been just about building fast cars. It's a story of constant evolution. Every decade brought new challenges, new technology, and new competitors. Yet time and time again, Ferrari responded by creating a machine that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The 250 GT Tour de France established Ferrari as a force to be reckoned with. The 250 GTO became the ultimate collector's dream. The 512 BB changed Ferrari's engineering philosophy forever. The F40 reminded the world that raw emotion could be just as important as outright speed. The F50 brought Formula One engineering to the road. The Enzo ushered Ferrari into the 21st century. The LaFerrari proved that hybrid technology could enhance, rather than replace, the soul of a supercar. And now the F80 carries that legacy into a new era, showing that Ferrari is still chasing the same goal it has pursued since 1947, building the most thrilling driver's cars on the planet. Choosing the greatest Ferrari of every decade was never going to be easy, and no two enthusiasts will agree on every pick. That's what makes Ferrari so special. Every generation has produced cars that inspired lifelong fans, sparked endless debates, and captured the imagination of millions around the world. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Did we get it right, or would you have chosen a different Ferrari for one of these decades? Let us know your picks in the comments below. We'll be reading them all. If you enjoyed this journey through nearly 8 decades of Ferrari history, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to Wheels of the World, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the machines that shaped automotive history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.